This is the podcast overview for week 8, where we will be covering chapter 8, nutrition, weight control, diet, and exercise and safety. So here's your to-do list for the week. Also your objectives for chapter 8, and you can click here to get a rundown of each of these objectives and some more information about what to expect with this chapter. We're also covering Module 3, the digestive system, so that's back in Chapter 2. You're just going to cover that segment on the digestive system. Your lecture slides are here. We have one video this week. It's called The Weight of Obesity. You're going to want to watch that, and I've attached a worksheet. You don't have to turn the worksheet in, but it's going to help you follow along and get some key points that I want you to have. You're going to be incorporating this video into this week's discussion, so you just don't want to miss any important points from that. The discussion has to do with actually both chapters this week, so you'll be reading Chapter 8 in the Longevity Project, and it's looking at physical activity. And so it mirrors nicely what you're going to be reading about in Chapter 8 of the main text. So you're going to complete the assessment, and this week's assessment has to do with your current day-to-day activities. And as you're filling out the assessment, you're going to see that it gives you activities to choose from. These are the actual activities that were used in the assessment for the Terman data. And so some of these activities you may or may not be doing. These were given to adults. So what you want to do is find activities that are similar that you do to the ones that they did. And then you're going to be assigning METs for each activity, METs, which are metabolic equivalents for each activity. So it's kind of like how many calories are you expending, how much are you taxing your metabolism when you are doing each activity. And so each thing is going to get a value, and you're going to be using those, and you're going to have to break out your calculator here and do some quick math to determine what your overall score is, your overall MET score. And so once you do that, you're going to then interpret your score and tell what that means about you according to the instructions in the assessment. Then you'll go ahead and answer these questions here, talking about physical activity and how it relates to health and longevity. Now remember, it sort of dispels some of the common myths. It wasn't necessarily the case that the marathon runners who were in the Terman data set lived the longest. It wasn't necessarily the case even that those who exercised every day lived the longest. So what were some of the findings? What was the overall picture of health and longevity? And how does your physical fitness compare to that of the younger Terman participants? So you'll read a little bit about what they had to say there. And then I want you to kind of branch out and think about the average American, and how do you think that the average American compares today to that of the average American about 50 years ago. So be thinking about the main chapter in your Serafino and Smith book, what it says about exercise and eating. It gives you a lot of stats, it gives you a lot of data, prevalence rates of different illnesses related to diet and exercise. And we've been talking about this a lot, as we've mentioned already, coronary heart disease and diabetes. So you'll want to kind of brush up on some of that, even if it means going back to earlier chapters to kind of bridge some of those concepts. And then you're going to take into account the video, the weight of obesity. I want you to talk about what factors are leading us to be less active as a nation, and what role does diet play in our overall health and lifestyle. And you can break this down into stages, because the video really covers kids all the way up through adults, and some of the challenges at each life cycle stage. And so in particular, what might be some of the barriers that adolescents face with diet and exercise versus, an adult versus an older person. So you want to talk about a little bit of that. So that is your discussion. There is no test this week. And so that wraps it up. So just make sure you don't miss anything. This is the last module that we're covering. So after module 3, you'll have worked through all of them. But of course, if you get stuck or you have questions, please feel free to email me, and I'd be glad to set up a Zoom meeting with you.